Hello, good afternoon, real estate professionals. How's everyone doing today? Welcome, and thank you for being a part of our Agent Advantage webinar. My name is Kurt Klaus. Again, thanks for joining these live webinars. Today's topic is about how you, the agent, and we'll give outlines and give specifics, how you can help your first-time buyers through the home buying process. These webinars are brought to you by the Guaranteed Rate family of companies and our Agent Advantage website. So all buyers deal with tough decisions, and as we all know, it can be overwhelming and intimidating, but especially so for someone who is a first-time home buyer. It's the reason for our webinar today. First-time buyers really rely on your expertise to give them and outline the process, not only what to do, but what not to do, and what is the correct order to do it in. So plan on 45 minutes today. Today's webinar, we will share some of the technology and the tools that we have for your buyers to help things go smoothly, and we'll also provide a guide on how to best help them understand different loan options and programs that are available to them. And then we'll break down the specific steps and the full, all the steps specifically of the whole buying journey in the order to do them in. So if you're working with a first-time buyer, I believe it's more than just another transaction, especially with a first-time buyer. It's a great opportunity for you to gain that client for life. The average person buys 3 to 4 homes in their lifetime, and you want this to be smooth and positive so you can stay connected to that client for future business and future referral business and add that strong promoter to your database. So again, glad you're here. These are live. Please ask your questions. There is a questions chat there in your GoToWebinar. So type in your questions. The team, Danielle and Nick, will try to answer those with typed replies. Otherwise, we can answer them live. We'll save a little time at the very end of the webinar to answer some live questions. But before we bring in our guest speaker, Dave Lopshire, I wanted to, for people who this might be their first webinar, again, they're brought to you by the Agent Advantage website. Agent Advantage, proprietary to the Guaranteed Rate family of companies. The site is agents.rate.com. Agent Advantage is all about making your life easier as a real estate agent and efficiencies and helping you grow your business. There is a referral piece. Agent Advantage has a loan status monitor dashboard where you can track loans. There is an entire marketing platform if you want to send emails and websites and drip campaigns. Now there's a coaching piece. This webinar is kind of part of that coaching component. These webinars are all archived and housed on the Agent Advantage site. If someone in your office wants to watch today's webinar, where we have a recording on the Agent Advantage website, give us a day or two. We'll render it and archive it on the site. Also add it to our Facebook page. So again, Agent Advantage, no cost. We want to help you, the real estate agent, grow your business. Our goal is to help promote agent excellence. We also have an Agent Advantage Insider Facebook page. This is a closed group. You can submit a request to join the Agent Advantage Insider. Maybe Danielle will put a little link in there in the chat where you can go to the link. Or you can take a pic of that QR code right on your screen on the PowerPoint and submit a request to join the Agent Advantage Insider group. Again, that's a closed group. It's got content. It's got our latest upcoming webinars. It's got real estate news, adding a mentorship, but the Agent Advantage Insider, again, just for our referral partner agents across the country, and everything we do for our agents is kind of disclosed there. So check it out. Anyone in the business can join. QR code's there for you to take advantage of. So hopefully you'll join that closed group. So that brings us to today's webinar, and I will bring in our Senior VP of Sales, Dave Lopshire. We are always happy to have Dave come on. He is our Senior VP of Sales Performance. And Dave, in this presentation, will help you and show you exactly how you can facilitate the transaction for your first-time home buyers. Dave, how are you today?
I'm awesome, Kurt. Thanks for having me back. It's always good to spend time with you guys on the Agent Advantage site. Always great to help coach and help all of our realtor partners as we go out there and navigate this crazy world in which we live, right?
We love and appreciate your time. And again, happy to have you. So I will hand it over to you again. Ask questions, everybody. This is for you. And we'll try to get to some of those questions at the end. But I will turn it over to Dave. And again, appreciate you, Dave.
All right, cool. All right, so when somebody tells me that, they want to buy a house, and I ask them, have you, tell me about your current living situation. They say, well, we've, been renting or living with our parents, or, anything that indicates to me that this is the first time that they're going to buy a house. I immediately just stop. Block out the next 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, maybe longer, or set up a time to where we can sit and I can focus in, because we all know that the first time somebody goes through the process of buying a house, there's two things that we view first. They're excited like crazy. They've done a little bit of their homework on Google, which is always a scary thing, right? And then the second thing is that they're totally unprepared for a lot of the things that we're going to talk about, right? So being the fact that most people, when they go to start, the home buying process, where do they go? They go to their real estate agents, right? Because they've been on Zillow and Trulia and Realtor.com and all those home search sites, right? And however they find you is a great thing. But the problem with that is that we all know about the misinformation that's out there. So we have to really kind of stop and walk somebody who's never done this before through the entire process. And so, as I always say, I want to just start with the fact that, number one, we got to slow down, right? And I don't mean this in a demeaning way at all, because the reason that I'm going to say this is because I had a client actually tell me this one time when I found out that they were a first-time home buyer, and we went through some things. One of the people, the young couple was buying the house. They looked at me and go, just think of us as sixth graders, right? You got to answer every stupid little question that we're going to have. And I said, absolutely, that's what my job is, right? So one of the things I want to make sure that you guys do is that the more we do up front for that first-time home buyer, the better off we're going to be in the long run. We got to take time, especially at the beginning, walk them through everything that could absolutely come up. So I will always do every time I come on with in the gang here, right? I'm going to tell you, your lending partner is going to be really instrumental in dealing with a first-time home buyer. And before we get through all these slides and talking about the process, think about this, right? You pull somebody aside. This is the first time that they've bought a home. They know a little, but they don't know a lot. So my job as a lender is to fill in the blanks. Your job as a realtor is to fill in the blanks, right? And together, we're going to get this client through the process of buying a house. So the first thing we have to do is we have to prepare them, right? You're going to prepare them for the process of what it takes to find and purchase a house. I'm going to prepare them for what it takes to get approved for financing, okay? So if I think about my lending partner, when you bring me the first-time home buyer, I'm going to talk to them about, how much money do they have? I think of the one pillar that I focus in on a lot is, where's that money going to come from that they're going to use for a down payment, for their closing costs, for their transfer taxes and their escrow fees, all of those things. Where's that money going to come from, And if I have a great conversation with them, sometimes I've discovered that maybe they're going to get a gift from grandma, right? Well, you guys know that if we're going to use a gift, I got some rules that I gotta pay attention to. So going back to that original point, I have to assess how much money they have available to buy a house. And then the next thing I have to explore is I have to explore their credit, right? I have to figure out where they are financially, what their credit history has been. Easiest way for us to do that is obviously pull their credit report. But again, first-time home buyers might be a little bit reluctant to have us pull their credit, especially if they're just starting out, or maybe they don't have a lot of trade lines, or maybe they got that free credit report and it doesn't, look favorable, even though we know that we're going to get much deeper when we actually get into the credit report that we use, right? So first thing foremost, the money in the bank, the money that they're going to use for the purchase, I got to look at their credit, and then I got to look at their, their stability. I got to look at how much money they make. I got to see what their monthly outgo is, right? I'm going to look at their debt to income ratios. I'm going to look at their front end ratio, which is what their housing payment is according to how much they bring on a monthly basis. I'm going to look at all their expenses. So we call that the back end ratio. So I want to look at those ratios. I want to look at their spending habits. I want to look at all of those things. And again, we have to be the people that walk them through that process, right? Now, I'm gonna work them through that, and I'm gonna take you through the process of that. But from a real estate side, right? You think about the complexities of looking for a house and where they should find them, and their desires, where they want to live, how big of a house. I'm going to help you decide how much they can afford, right? And that's going to put you in the different neighborhoods or the different areas. And again, sometimes when first-time home buyers haven't prepared themselves enough, right? They may have grand expectations of what they want to buy as it becomes realistic to what they actually can buy, right? So you guys have to deal with that as well. So don't ever put somebody in a car to show them houses until they've talked to your lending partner, and then we've had a chance to go through and take a look at their current situation. And again, I'm going to drive this home. The more work we do up front, the better off we're going to be as the transaction goes forward, right? It's just something that we absolutely have to take a lot of time up front. And then what we do is we start moving from there. So as we look at some of these tools that we have. So Kurt, if you could go to the next slide, we think about the intuitive online tools, right? So these intuitive online tools, as we go to the next slide, there's a thing that we have here at the Guaranteed Rate Companies called GRAFFORDABLE. So one of the most Googled terms out there is mortgage calculator, right? Now, every one of our VPs, or what we refer to as our loan officers here, our VPs, each one of us has a website, right? And so on our websites are tools like calculators and how much we can, that somebody might be able to afford. And if you have a client that's thinking about, starting the process of buying a home, one of the first things that you can actually do is have them go into your lending partner's website, if it happens to be a guaranteed rate lending partner, and I hope it is, right? We all have GRAFFORDABLE. They can use this as a tool, and I mean, it can take less than a minute for them to put in some basic information, and they can see what their monthly payments might be, right? And obviously, it's very intuitive. It kind of looks at the area where the property is. It looks at the property amounts. It takes into effect the conventional loan limits, things like that. But what it really does is it shows what their interest rate could be, right? It shows them, should I go 30-year fixed rate mortgage, or should I look at it interest only? And we'll talk about some of those things in just a minute, right? So it gives them the most important thing that they need to know is how much do they need to put down, and how much would their payment be every month? Because you think about somebody, if I quote somebody a rate right now and we lock that in and then we get their rate closed, right? In a year from now, if I ask them what their rate was, they probably won't know. But if I ask them what their monthly payment is, you better believe they can quote it in dollars and cents, right? So focus in again on the monthly payment. All right, as we go to the next slide here. So we have something here called the digital mortgage, right? And again, I'm going to come at you from the guaranteed rate standpoint, because we have thought this process out from start to finish, how we make a great experience for our home buyers. So what we want to do is, after they've taken a look at where they are situationally, I want to start working toward getting their pre-qualified and then eventually pre-approved. So the first thing that I would probably ask you to do as a real estate agent, after you've had a conversation with them about the process of looking and finding and buying a home, understanding their wants and their desires and what they want to find in a home, then we start looking at what they can afford. The best thing for me to do is be able to start the process by working toward pre-qualification, which is an informal look at how much home they might be able to afford, and then working to a more formal process where I'm actually going to meet with them. I'm going to go through and look at all those things I talked about. We're going to walk through and get some things down, right? And then we're going to work toward getting that pre-approval. The best way for me to do that is for them to use my digital mortgage. And again, they can go onto my website, they can click the Apply Now button, and then if they click that they want to purchase a home and that they're just starting the purchase process, it's going to take them into GR Affordable. If I want to work toward getting them pre-approved, it's going to ask them for more information, right? And again, we want to make sure that we're getting and assessing their buying power, right? How much home they can buy. I ask a lot of first-time home buyers, especially, what do you want your payment to be? And then, I'll ask them, what's your limit? What's the most you could absolutely go without getting out your comfort zone, right? And so we want to make sure that we do that. The more I do with that potential buyer for you, the better off you will be when you start to show them homes, right? You want to work with pre-approved buyers that you can take out there, and especially in this changing market, we want to make sure that we're positioning those buyers to have the most power to buy that home. All right, we'll switch to the next slide, and then we'll talk about the fact that it's really important that we fit clients into the right loan, right? And obviously that's something that comes apart that pre-approval process. And the last time we were together, we talked about some of these different types of mortgages, right? So fixed rates, that's probably the most often thing that you're going to see with a first-time home buyer. We want to make sure that we get them into a product that they can afford, right? And most of your first-time home buyers, I would say 95% of the first-time home buyers are going to go to the maximum 30 years, right? We put them in a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage because we want them to be able to consistently budget to make those payments, right? We want them to be able to think about how they're going to be able to do any improvements they might need to make down the road, or what they want to do as far as, maybe buying some new furniture, or maybe they're thinking about, starting a family or expanding their family. Some of the things that they're thinking about down the road, I want to take into consideration. So both of us, we have to have those conversations. We ask them, what are your future plans? How long do you want to stay in this house, right? A lot of those things. We want to get them in the most stable situation that we can do. Now, if they have, maybe they have substantially more saved up to put down and use for closing costs, or maybe they're looking at, they want to use this house as a stepping stone to get a bigger house, I might think about a 15-year mortgage. You're going to have a little bit of lower rate, but your payment's going to be much higher because obviously you're going to pay that loan off quicker, right? So there's going to be, a much higher payment. So we just kind of have to really look at where they are and what they do. And the thing I love about a good old 30-year fixed rate conventional Fannie Freddie mortgage is the fact that it's very stable. It's I wouldn't say it's completely immune, but it's a little bit immune from the craziness of the market, right? And this is, for that buyer that's really looking at the place that they want that house to be. They're looking at neighborhoods. They're looking at where they want their kids to go to school. They want to, build equity in a home. So that's what I think about when I think about this fixed rate mortgage. Now, I can go from there as we go to the next slide. We think about, how are the other options that we have. So if they tell me, they say, look, okay, we just want to get this house and we want to stay here, I don't know, 3, 5, maybe a little bit longer than that, I might think about an adjustable rate mortgage, okay? But remember, we're dealing with a first-time home buyer, okay? It's much more complex because remember, if I put them in a 5-1 ARM, right? For the first 5 years, their rate is going to be a little bit lower. Their payment might be a little bit lower, right? But as we approach that 5-year mark, what if they fell in love with the house? What if they really want to stay there, right? What if their kids love the school and they want to move, right? Now I'm faced with having to make some decisions as we approach that 5-year mark. So I have to make sure that the first-time home buyer that I'm dealing with really understands the complexity of an adjustable rate mortgage, right? And I'm going to tell you, I'm a classic case of this. My wife and I moved into our house 25 years ago with a full intention of keeping our house for 4 or 5 years and then moving to a different place. And again, that's why I bring up the fact that we fell in love with the neighborhood. The kids love the schools. We're still living in the house 25 years later, right? So it's something that we have to think about. All right, let's keep moving through some of these other loan programs. So think about jumbo loans, okay? Now, in a lot of areas where you guys are, especially where you have your higher loan amounts, we have to think about a jumbo, right? We have to get a little bit more detailed when we qualify somebody for a jumbo loan, because obviously it's a lot more money, a lot more investment. It's going to require a much higher down payment, right? You can't do some of the other options that we have with first-time home buyers on jumbo loans. But if that's what they're up against, then we have to figure out how we get them into that loan. Our wheelhouse, as I mentioned, are those basic conventional conforming loans, right? If you're under the conventional conforming loan limits, we look at the down payment options that we have. Sometimes with a Fannie or Freddie loan, we can go as low as a 3% down payment. We do have to qualify the buyer and make sure that they have all the wherewithal to comfortably take on the loan. But we do have some options when it comes from a conventional conforming loan, and we can do 30 years, and sometimes we can even do a 25-year loan. Just depends on where they are and what their ultimate goal is. And of course, a renovation loan, again, pretty complex for a first-time home buyer, but some of them might be thinking about looking at that fixer-upper, because they can buy the home a little bit cheaper and they can put some investment into it. There are some requirements with a renovation loan. We got to make sure that we have a contractor and we have those people that are doing that, but they can make that house their own. And again, a little bit complex when you put a first-time home buyer in a renovation loan, so you want a really strong expert to get them through that process. But I'm going to tell you, for you guys, it opens up a lot of doors for you guys to be able to sell more houses to these first-time home buyers. Now, here's where we kind of live with first-time home buyers. In addition to the conventional conforming loans, we also talk a lot about government loans. FHA loan is the perfect loan for a first-time home buyer. They can come in with as low as 3% down. The credit is a little less stringent, right? So I like to think of it this way: an FHA loan is a little bit more forgiving when it comes to their credit history. Remember, sometimes first-time home buyers, especially if they're younger, they don't have a lot of trade lines, or they don't have a lot of activity on their credit report. So we have some options with an FHA loan. Now, some of you probably just winced. Some of you veterans that have been in the real estate industry for a while, you probably just winced a little bit, because at one point in time, FHA loans were, they required some much more stringent appraisal requirements, right? Just think of it this way. FHA just wants the home to be safe, right? So what we're looking for is to make sure that that home is safe and it's going to pass inspection and it's going to, be something good for this first-time home buyer. So don't ever turn away from a government loan. We can close a government loan as fast as we can close a conventional conforming loan, and it's a lot more options for our first-time home buyers. Now, VA loans. One of the first questions I ask every person I talk to, right, when I'm getting them and we're talking about putting somebody in a mortgage, I want to know if they've ever served in the military, right? Because obviously there's a lot of options that we have for those wonderful men and women who have served our country, right? I ask them, have you ever served in the military? And they say yes. The first thing I do is thank them for their service. And then the second thing we do is say, have you ever explored your VA benefits, right? Now, I'm also going to tell you that you'd be surprised at this, but a lot of the people who are eligible for a VA loan don't understand how to use it. And so that's where your lending partner can really walk them through and help them possibly use their VA loan. And remember, most VA loans, even though they're going to pay a funding fee, right, they don't have to come with much money to the closing table, right? Because VA is a 100% LTV or a zero down payment program in most instances. And there's things that we can do to make sure that they come to the closing table with as little funding as possible. But again, every buyer is different, every veteran is different, so we have to take that as a one-on-one. Guaranteed rate, currently, we're waiving all of our lender fees on all of our VA loans. So we want to make sure that we take one extra step so they're coming to the closing table with a little bit less money. Now, USDA is an amazing loan program as long as somebody wants to live outside of a metropolitan area, right? That's the biggest requirement. There are some income requirements. They have to make 115% of the standard income. They can't make any more than that. So there's some income requirements. The home has to be located in a rural area. It can't be in any kind of a metro area. But there's some really cool things. The best thing about a USDA loan is it's 100% financing. In fact, you can sometimes go above that to maybe factor in some of the closing costs if you're dealing with maybe not enough cash to close, right? So there's a lot of things that we can do with the USDA loan. Again, perfect for a first-time home buyer that wants to get outside the city. All right, more things that we talk about with our buyers as we move through the rest of these slides. And I know we're supposed to keep this to 45 minutes, and I talk really fast, but don't be afraid to use that questions box, right? If you have questions that we can answer for you as we go through this, we'd be glad to do that. All right, let's talk about the perfect transaction. And again, I'll go back to that original statement I made as we go to the next slide, right? The best thing that I can do is to make sure my buyer understands what's gonna happen, right? So we walk them through, and as you should as well, right? The first thing they should do is get into a financial position before they ever look at a house, right? So with your lending partner, you make sure that you guys have a handoff to your lending partner works with them. And again, no matter how long it takes, right? We want to make sure that we get those first-time home buyers in a position to be the best place they can be to be successful in buying that home, right? And then once we get them set up for success, where that's pre-qualified, pre-approved, we turn them back over to you. And then we work together to make sure that they're looking for houses, looking in the right places, that they're using your expertise. Remember, a lot of the younger first-time home buyers, they live on the internet, right? The more that they can live off of the internet and using your brain, the better off they're going to be. I don't know how better way to put that, right? But what we want to do is we want to make sure that you stay in close contact with those first-time home buyers, walking them through the process, making sure as they look for homes that you're involved in that home shopping process. Remember, the NAR says a lot of people, you know, they get out there and start looking for homes and start looking at those home search sites. They lose touch with their existing lender. They lose touch with their existing real estate partner, right? So we want to make sure that we're staying in touch with them all the way through that home shopping process. Because remember, when you have a first-time home buyer and you're, you know, limited in some areas, they may have a little bit more difficult time finding the right house. So we want to make sure that we're nurturing them all the way through that. And then when they do find the home that they want to, you know, that's when you really come in. This is the most important thing that you can do for them, is walk them through the entire offer process, the negotiation process, how it all works, the contract, the next steps, all of those things, right? We're going to work together to get the appraisal ordered. You're going to get the inspections done. We're going to walk them through. But the most important thing you can do with a first-time home buyer is, remember, it becomes routine for us, right? You got to tell them what's going on. All right, we've got this contract in place. The seller has accepted your offer. We're going to do all of these things. We're going to order an appraisal. We're going to order inspections. We're going to do all this X, Y, Z, and 1, 2, 3, right? You walk them through every step, even though it's going to be sometimes routine for you. Make sure they know what's going on. And I'm going to give you some ideas of what they should do while their loan's in process too, right? Now, we get into that conditional approval. At Guaranteed Rate Companies, we try to get that initial approval in their hands as soon as possible, right? We want to get that to them as soon as we can so everybody relaxes. We want them to relax. We want them to feel comfortable. And then we have, all of us together, have a great closing. Because remember, all of us together, we have to land that closing so we get that referral for life with that client, right? All right, so there's your 5 steps. Remember, walking them through all the time. Now, as they go through, as I told you earlier, I need to know how much money they have, so I gotta now track all of those things. And what's gonna happen, and you guys can help us with this as we go through the application process. If we've pre-approved the buyer, once we have a contract in place, now we have an application, right? So we found them the perfect mortgage. We start to walk them through the actual application. Maybe they did the pre-approval process through the digital mortgage. So now we're gonna update the information, right? Now, we're required by the government, as you guys know, within 3 days that they have that application, we have to send them what's called a loan estimate, right? Once they have that in place and we have executed that loan estimate, we're going to start to gather some paperwork, right? They can put anything they want on the application, but we verify it through documentation, pay stubs, bank statements. You guys all know the stuff that we ask for, right? At Guaranteed Rate, we have a pretty amazing system now that a lot of that stuff we're able to do digitally so we don't have to have the actual document. So that's a pretty cool thing to help our buyers have a great experience. Now, one of the things that's really important is that I start talking about these things all the way back to when we pre-approved, right? I want them to start gathering the information that we need. We need to get all this stuff. So when you get the contract in place, we can haul you know what, right? We can start really going forward, and we want to get that stuff done, right? Now, as we go through the digital mortgage, and we go to the next slide, you can see that there's some complexities after that, right? Because what we want to do is we want to protect your deal, okay? So it's really important, and you can help us drive this as well. We tell our buyers, look, you're in process. You got a contract on a home, your mortgage loan is being reviewed, right? What I want you to do is I want you to just live life calmly, right? Don't do anything crazy. Don't, in fact, sometimes I want to tell a buyer to just go stay at home for the next, month and don't do anything. Don't even go online, but you can't really tell people to do that, right? Because what they don't understand is that anything that they change in their current situation could affect their mortgage, right? So I'll tell you a funny story real quick. I had a buyer several years ago who was really excited about their new house, right? Their mortgage is in process. And I'm going to tell you, we were really tight on everything, tight on down payment, tight on our ratios, everything was tight. And I told them, look, don't do anything. Don't buy anything. Don't do anything. Well, they're excited about their new house. So they get out and they're looking for furniture, right? And I actually think it was a furniture store that they walked into, and the furniture store had a promotion that said 6 months, same as cash, right? 6 months, same as cash. Buy your furniture now and don't pay us for them for 6 months. Well, they heard me when I told them don't buy anything, but they didn't hear me when I should have said, including anything that has to do with your credit, right? So I have to make sure that I tell them don't do anything. Well, what did they do? They got this furniture, right? Because the salesman did his job and said, furniture's hard to come by right now. The quicker you can buy it, you don't have to pay for it for 6 months. You should lock it up now. Well, what do they do, right? They pull a credit report. And so my buyer's now in jeopardy. I had a delayed closing because we had to put them back into situation, right? Because if they take on an additional trade line, I have to treat that as additional money that they have to come up with, right? So I said, look, and I've told every buyer since then, don't do anything. Don't change your credit cards. Don't change your accounts. Don't do anything. Don't move any money around. If grandma's going to give you a gift, just let grandma hold on to it till I tell you to do something with it. If you get some money, or if you sell something out of your backyard, maybe you're getting ready to move, so you have a big garage sale and you make a couple of $1,000, hold on to the cash, right? Don't put it in your bank account yet. So in other words, what I tell my clients, and you guys can really drive this home, right? Just live your life. Don't make any changes. Don't do anything until we get that mortgage loan closed, okay? And then again, what's really important is that they don't give their information to anybody who could possibly run a credit report. So appliance stores, furniture stores, anything to do with their house, even Home Depot or any of the big box lumber yards, right? Nothing. Just stay even, okay? All right, next slide. So here's the thing, right? Again, what I'm trying to do is I want to make sure that I'm making their experience great and I'm setting you up for success, right? So we tell them to, ask a lot of questions. And I tell them that their real estate agent knows the market backward, forward, sideways, right, and left. Your real estate agent knows houses. They know what to look for, right? I said, if you're walking in and you see something that doesn't look right, ask your agent, right? Ask your agent about the house itself, the structure, the things that don't seem right to you. And then, of course, you guys are already going to do your due diligence and talk about the neighborhood and schools and, the closest Starbucks or the closest grocery store, right? Everything that they would need to know about that particular area. All right, so you see that little thing at the bottom that says taxes, HOA fees, and insurance costs are estimated during the pre-approval process. Another thing that I tell my buyers, right? You keep that money in the bank, don't move it, don't touch it, don't do anything with it But the other thing is that don't just, as your lending partner, I never just skip over the loan estimate, right? I want them to understand how much money they really do need when they get to the closing table. And that's something that you can help us drive home as we go through getting their loan ready to close as well. All right, Kurt, next slide. Let's talk about, as we continue step 3. This is all you. This is all you, and this is where your expertise is going to be so important, right? We get that executed contract. We get all of the information that we're looking for to try to get them through and moving toward getting them closed. But make sure that, that they understand the whole process, the earnest money process, the offer process, and even going back when you're negotiating the sale. The other thing that's really important, right, is that you help us facilitate that appraisal, because the quicker we can get it, the more likely we are to be able to move that transaction along. And the quicker we're able to get that transaction closed, the less likely we are to be dealing with any other information, right? Now, here's another thing. Help us get those buyers to understand the quicker that they get us those documents, the quicker we can move things along. All right, step 4 as we move to the next slide. Here's the one thing that's really important, right? I want those clients to understand that now we have a conditional approval, but nothing's changed, right? You still can't go buy furniture. You still can't change anything. You can't move any money around. Let me help you. I'll tell you what we need to do. And then as we get closer to closing, we may be asking them for updated documentation, right? Help us make sure that you drive that home with us, because remember, some of those documents that we asked for at the beginning of the transaction, they may have expired, and we may need updated documentation, or we may see something that has, was a little bit different than reported when we get into underwriting, and we have to make sure that we redocument. Sometimes our buyers will have to give us what's called a letter of explanation, right? So we have to make sure that they explain some of the things that an underwriter may see on their credit report. All right, and now we get to step 5. This is really, really critical, right? We want to go all the way to the end. We want to stick that closing, right? We want everybody to have such a great experience with us. And so as I would challenge you to challenge your lending partner to make sure that when your buyers get that final closing disclosure, right, they're going to get it 3 days before they close, that they go over the cost and fees with them, right? We want to make sure that those buyers, when they show up at the closing table, that they have the funds they need to execute on that transaction, right? We want to make sure that they know how to get a certified bank check, right? Or how they schedule a wire. If they need to bring money to the closing table, how they're going to do that. Now, we give them instructions, but think about this. Most of the first-time home buyers that you deal with are probably going to be younger people, right? When's the last time they went to a bank, right? Ask them if they ever wrote a check. You'll be really surprised at some of the answers, right? So we have to make sure that we put all of this stuff, spell it out for them, A through Z, so they understand how to get there when we all show up for that great day, when we're sitting at that closing table and we're ready to get that loan closed, and you can hand them the keys to that beautiful house, right? All right, so those are the 5 steps that we need to make sure that we're doing with a first-time home buyer. And then as we go to the next slide, we'll think about, how we think about the final thing I'm going to tell you, right? I'm just going to go back to the way we started this. Slow down. And again, you hear me, I talk really fast. I have to really kind of hold on and really go slow, walk them through, but most important, let them ask questions, right? Say, is there anything you don't understand, right? And sometimes they don't know the question to ask, so prompt them. Think about things that they may not be asking. So the more conversation that we can have with a first-time home buyer, the better off we're going to be, and the more things that we can do up front with that first-time home buyer, the way better off that we're going to be. Remember, it's like the 6th grader analogy, right? You want to just walk them through every little thing that you can think of, making sure that you are asking the right questions and providing the right information for them. Because remember, as I tell our VPs here all the time, you know what? We're all in the sales business. We're all great salespeople. And the way that we sell is by providing information. Selling is 80% listening, right? By prompting with the right questions. So Kurt, I know I talk really fast. We're right at 40 minutes. So how'd I do?
No, we did great. And we got some questions. Let me read a couple. And I think you may have covered this in step 2. Good question from Lorenzo. how do we factor in what someone can afford, our buyer, if we're looking at townhomes and condos, considering the high HOA fees today?
Yeah, so we have to factor the HOA into their payment, right? And so that's a really important thing when somebody asks you, and I ask a buyer, how much payment can you afford? So it's really important that I factor those HOA fees into that. And we at the guarantee rate companies, and again, I'm going to brag a little bit. We're probably the best at condos in the history of the world. Thank you. But the reason being is because we've done so many of them, right? We've done so many condos. We actually have a department here that can research and very quickly let us know the documentation that we're going to need on a condo. They're going to let us know what those HOA fees are. We factor those in when we pre-approve or pre-qualify the buyer. So, and as you guys know, every property is different when it comes to HOA fees. So we need to know and get on a level playing field and actually contact the association and find out what those fees are.
Great. Another question, what's your opinion on credit repair companies? What should I do with clients who have poor or bad credit? Tips there.
Yeah, so there are some credit repair companies out there. Make sure that they're legitimate, right? We do have some credit repair partners that we use here at the guarantee rate companies. The best thing that I can tell you is that when we actually pull the credit, we're going to be able to see exactly what they need to do. But if somebody tells me that they have poor credit or that they need to work on their credit, I might be a little bit hesitant to pull that credit, right? I want to have a conversation with them and figure out what it is. And then if we see you and they pull that free credit report, and they have a lower credit score, we may need to provide some counseling for them to actually help them, start to establish credit. I dealt with a young couple recently. One of our loan officers was talking with this young couple, and they were not yet married. And the female of the couple had really established credit. She had saved up some money, and she was in a great position to buy. And her partner, her fiance, he had not had any credit. I mean, his parents had paid for his apartment while he was in college. He had a debit card, right? He never paid a utility. His parents took care of all those things, and he had not established any credit whatsoever. So here we have this young couple who really wants to buy a house together, but we didn't have any way to put him in a mortgage, right? So what we had to do is we had to say, look, what I want you to do in the remaining few months that you're in school, you pay all your bills. Get a credit card and put all your gas and groceries on that credit card and pay it off every month. Establish some trade lines, right? Now, with those people who have some dinged credit, just if you're going to use a credit repair company, and again, I have to speak compliantly here. I am not in the position to counsel people on their credit. That's not my job. My job is to help them with their mortgage. But if you're going to use a credit repair company, just make sure they're reputable and established. And that's a discussion that you can also have with your lending partner as well.
Good answer. One more. How can I find out if there's any first-time buyer homeowner assistance or grant programs that are available for my state or market, or what can you speak on with that?
Great question. So every state has what's called a down payment assistance program. Every state. And some states are better than others, right? And again, I would refer you to your lending partner because they have access to the down payment assistance programs that they can do, right? And I'm going to tell you, we have a department here at the Guarantee Rate Companies that maintains all of our down payment assistance programs. And if I have a home buyer that comes to me and I know they're a first-time home buyer and maybe they are struggling a little bit with saving enough money to buy a house, I can look through those down payment assistance programs that we offer, and I might be able to get them into a mortgage using one of those down payment assistance programs. There are a plethora of those programs available for people, and I would encourage you to talk with your lending partner to figure out what they have available to your clients. But a DPA is an amazing thing to help a first-time home buyer who might be struggling with enough funds to close. It's a great thing.
And I'm guessing that's different in each state.
Yeah, it is absolutely. In fact, Kurt, some places it's different by county, right? So that's why, and there's so many of them out there, and there's different situations for different buyers. So again, exploring with your lending partner who can, look through and see what they have available and what they can get for your buyers is a great thing.
Here's another good one. Are you seeing seller reluctance right now to accept an offer involving an FHA or a VA or a USDA?
We have not seen any whatsoever. We have seen a lot of sellers that understand that never with a VA. I don't think I've ever seen a seller, and in fact, they're excited most times when they find out that the buyer's a veteran. USDA, remember those are outside of the metro areas, so there's a lot of things that you can do with the USDA loan. In fact, I don't have enough time the rest of the day to explain all the cool things that you can do with the USDA loan, right? But you can go out and outside of a metro area, there's a lot of things you could do with a piece of land, right? So, and again, they don't have to come up with a down payment. So I've never seen a seller that's reluctant on a USDA. The only time that we run into reluctance when we have an FHA buyer is that if there's a safety issue with the house. That's the only time that we see that. And I've never seen a contract and you guys know how to build contracts, based on the condition of the house. I've never seen a contract not be accepted because of an FHA loan if the property was in sellable condition.
What are the stipulations for receiving gift money for the down payment?
All right, there's so many different nuances. I can't really, and every buyer is specific, right? So I think we have to kind of, I'll give you a generality, right? If, say for instance, that, I'm talking with a first-time home buyer and they say, I say, how much money do you have for your down payment and your closing costs? And they say, well, grandma's going to give us a gift, right? How much money is, or our grandma's going to give us $25,000 to put down on a home. That's awesome, right? That does tell me that I have to do my due diligence on what loan program that I can put them in. There's different requirements for a Fannie, for a Freddie, for an FHA loan. But the most part that I have to do is that I have to make sure that that gift is not a loan. That's the biggest thing. That gift is a real gift. They don't have to pay it back. There's no payback requirements ever, right? So I just have to legitimize that it's actually a gift. But again, there's differences with each loan program.
Right, thought so there. There are a couple more specific ones here, but I promise everyone that asked a question, we will get you we'll reply and get you an answer. We'll send it to the email that you registered with to get Dave to give you those answers. A lot of questions that came in hot and heavy at the end, Dave.
Yeah, I like it.
And I loved the renovation mention too today, with the inventory being so low, to help your buyers, find a home and just make it their dream home or the home they want. A little more to it, and first-time home buyers especially, but great option with there being such low inventory today.
Yep. Awesome.
I got to ask this one. How much longer do you think the rates will stay low? I want to, for the record, Dave.
All right, hang on. I got to go get my crystal ball.
I had to ask it, but so thank you, Dave.
Of course, anytime. I love doing this stuff, man. It's so much fun.
We'll follow up and get a couple more answers from you for those. And thank you everyone on the call for all the questions. And again, I promise we will reply to each and every question. And Dave, any words of wisdom at the end here? I wanted to thank you, and we'll give the listeners a preview of what's coming up next.
I just thank everybody for the opportunity to share some insight with you. And again, a great lending partner will really help you with those first-time home buyers.
Awesome. Great stuff, Dave. And before we go, our next webinar for November, we actually have a top speaker, author, sales coach. His name is Mark Evans, and he has perfected methods. He helps entrepreneurs, he helps salespeople transform their way of doing business to increase sales and increase their income. So tune in next month if you are putting your 2022 business plan together right now, and if you're kind of stuck or you want to kind of supercharge what you're doing, if you want to set and hit some big goals next year, join us for that to talk to Mark live. Looking forward to that one. Questions, feedback, email us, agents@rate.com. Again, the entire reason we're here is to promote agent excellence and to help you with any questions or queries. So please let us know what else we can do to help. We appreciate you joining us. Thank you, Dave Lopshire. You're the best. We hope to see all of you on our next webinar. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.